أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. Last time, alhamdulillah, we finished the fiqh part, finished talking about zakat and talking about siyam, among the two pillars of Islam, the ibadah of fasting and the ibadah of zakat and shirk. So, how many people answered the quiz? MashaAllah. Jazakumullah khair. Thank you. Okay, so we'll go over the questions, inshallah, hopefully less than 10 minutes, and then we'll start talking about the new topic today, inshallah. Okay, so examples of obligatory fasting. All of the above. What does it mean, the expiation? Expiation, the second one, what does it mean? Kafara, so what does it mean?
When you make vow that you want to do something, but then you do
No, that's the vote, that's the one below it. But the kafara, what does it mean?
You miss one voluntarily.
What?
You miss one voluntarily.
If you miss one and then you make it up, or you pay, or sometimes both, it depends on the situation, that you pay, we call it kafara. Or if you have a broken oath, if you break an oath that you made, you also pay kafara. Okay, something validators of fasting. Can you please sit quietly, please? Thank you. So some invalidators of fasting, nawaqid al-siyam. All of the above. Yes. Okay, among the types of property of which alms are obligatory?
All of the above.
All of the above. What does it mean, the treasures?
Money. Like gold and something valuable.
No, that's not the meaning of treasures.
No?
If you read the book, that's not the meaning of treasures. There is gold and silver, which is money. That's a different category. But this one is different. So how many types of zakah will be obligatory for? How many types of positions zakah has to be paid for? So what is number one? Livestock. Trade business. Number three.
Amount of nisab.
No, I'm talking about the types, different types of zakah, different types of money that zakah has to be paid for. We count the business already. So again, you mentioned livestock, you mentioned trade business. What else? Food. So what do you mean by food?
Like rice.
So dried fruits, some types of dried fruits and grains. Okay, what else? There's three. What else? So you didn't mention the money zakat, which is the gold and silver, right? You didn't count that. So gold and silver is one type of the zakat. What else? We count the money already. So again, can anyone count them all again? One person counts all the different types? Yes.
Livestock, gold, silver, trade, and treasure.
Okay, those are four. Right? Anything left? Zar? Yes, I don't think you mentioned that, right? Some of the grains and the dried fruits. Did you mention that? Okay, so there are five. So treasures is certain type that is different than the gold and silver. Right? We have something that we call it the treasures and the rikas. There are two different types. Al-ma'adin wal rikas, we call it in Arabic. It's the minerals that you find under the ground. And the rikas are any kind of treasures that were buried under the ground before Islam. There's two different types of the zakat that a person has to pay. So total of 5 different types. Sometimes we count the minerals and the treasures together, sometimes we separate between them. This is the meaning of the treasures. Okay? Among the conditions of obligation of zakat.
Possession of the minimum amount. Nisab.
That's the only condition?
Yes.
You don't have to be rich. How about paying 2.5?
All of them.
You have to pay.
Exactly. So that's not a condition. That's what happens when you own the nisab, right? Okay. Conditions of obligation of zakat al-fitr.
All of the above.
All of the above? You sure?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. Among the eligible zakat recipients,
Four of them.
how about orphans? Why?
They don't have to be poor. Often can be still.
Okay.
So it'd be like a poor and miskin.
Yeah, miskin is not mentioned here, but yeah, you're right. Orphans, it depends on the financial situation. Okay, some of the conditions or some of the recommended days of fasting. All of the above. Some of the conditions obligating the fast. All of the above?
Yeah.
So maturity is a condition for a person to fast?
Yes.
Okay. Among the days that are haram to fast,
3 days of.
All the above.
No, only days. Only 3 days.
Yeah, Sunday.
so why all of the above?
Because you mentioned Saturday was the right stop or Sunday right stop.
Did I say that?
Yes.
No.
Friday, Saturday, or Sunday, Wednesday.
No, I said it's not recommended to do this. I said, brothers in the corner there, brothers. I don't know what you're chatting about, but I'm really distracted by you. So the 3 of you and the 2 in the back, please. Okay? Please join us in the conversation. Jazakumullah khair.
asked you about Sunday.
Yeah, and I said it's not recommended to fast only on Saturday or only on Sunday. It's just makruh. We talked before that there's a difference between makruh and between haram. So yes, it's only the 3 days of tashriq. What are the 3 days of tashriq?
The 3 days before Ramadan.
Before? Which Eid? Which Eid we're talking about?
Adha.
3 days after the first Eid of Adha. 3 after the Eid day of Adha. Okay. You missed one? Did we talk about number 9?
Sure.
Oh, okay. Some of the recommended actions of fasting.
All of the above.
All of the above.
I said avoid impulsive
This is the only one.
Avoid.
So the first 2 are actually recommended actions in Siyam. That once you are sure that it's Maghrib time, it's recommended just to break your fast right away. It's not sunnah to delay it, if you know that it's already Maghrib time. And the same thing about Sufar. I mean the other way. Fasting is an act of worship that was also prescribed in a certain way to people before us. True. Okay. Intention of fasting is obligatory for every single night of Ramadan.
Yes, it's true.
Okay. It's okay to make intention of fasting Arafah day at 11 a.m. in the morning.
No, that's true, yeah.
Why?
Because it's not obligatory.
What is sunnah? To fast that day is sunnah. And we said the sunnah for fard is different than the sunnah for sunnah siyam from that perspective. Right? So for a fard siyam, for obligatory fasting, you have to have the intention before Fajr. For sunnah, you have the option until what time? Until Dhuhr time. Exactly. False oaths break the fast and waste the reward.
That's true.
Are you sure?
That's not but you
So how many people said it's true? How many people said it's false? Okay, why is it false?
because your actual go down.
Because what?
Your actual go down, but still you can keep the fast.
Okay, so it doesn't break the fast,
Yes.
but it might waste the reward.
It's not recommended, but doesn't break the fast.
Like,
It's false or true?
it's false.
But isn't lying haram?
That's why you said it does. So half of the question is actually false. Half of the statement I mean is false, right? But it might waste the reward, of course.
Yeah. Sorry, but we know that's not really breaking the fast as like the fard. In the book, when it says in general, spirituality, right?
Mhm.
When it says among the prophetic reports that it's 5 things break the fast.
Yes.
One of them is fasting, lying, backbiting, tale-bearing, false oath. Isn't it part of it?
That's why I repeated it 3 times last time, that there's a difference between breaking it fiqh-wise and we're breaking it, which means wasting the reward.
So where is that here?
What?
So here it's fit.
It's a trick question. That's why I put it like that.
So when you fast, you're not getting any reward.
So when we use the word break, that means the fiqh-wise, which means like it breaks the day that you have to make it up. If you took it, break the fast in a spiritual way, so why would I add this waste the reward? Right? If I mention 2 things, that means I'm talking about 2 levels, right? When I say break the fast, that's a fiqh level, and waste the reward, that's another level. That combines all. But I understand the confusion.
Are you gonna accept 2?
You answer.
No. Okay. So the passing of the solar year is a condition for the obligation of zakat.
False.
Why?
Look at it. Lunar year.
Okay, mashallah. The obligation for trade goods is paying 5% of its value after the passing of a year.
False.
Why?
2.5%.
2.5.
2.5. The calculation of the minimum amount of zakat nisab is based on the. I don't know where's the rest of the question.
Any answer is correct.
No, the 70. Yeah, it's based on the monetary value of 85 grams of gold. True. Okay. Zakat can only be given to Muslims, while non-zakat charity can be given to Muslims and non-Muslims. True. Muhammad possesses savings of $5,000 in Safa. And open the question. Yeah. Safar 1st, 1441 Hijri. The H stands for Hijri. On Rajab 1st, it became 3,000. On Ramadan 1st, it went up to 7,000. The zakat due date will be on Safar 1442. Why? Because what?
It's gonna be on, I don't know, the 7,000.
So when is when is exactly its due date for zakat?
Ramadan, if it says 7,000.
It stays 7,000. That means in Ramadan, which year?
40.
43.
14.
14, no. 42. 42.
43.
3 or 2?
3.
Okay, it's in Ramadan the following year. Okay, how many people answer this question wrong? How many people didn't answer it right? Okay, so that maybe the trick about the question is that, again, we said last time, once you go below the nisab, below the minimum amount of money, you do a kind of start over, a reset for your year. So if you go below the 4,000, once you go above the nisab again, nisab or more again, you restart, basically counting or calculating your zakah year. That's why. Okay, last one, it's okay to pay the fitr zakah at any time in Ramadan. True. Any time in Ramadan?
Yes.
Okay, so according to the Shafi'i school, it's okay. It's true, because you can pay any time in Ramadan. It's more preferred to be the last day of Ramadan, but you can pay it ahead of time. According to other madhahib, no, you can't, by the way. But in the Shafi'i school, it's easier to, it's easier opinion that you can pay at any time in Ramadan. But of course, you cannot pay before Ramadan, neither after Ramadan. Even the Eid day, you cannot pay on Eid day. You still have to if you didn't do it, but you committed a sin. If you miss it, you have to make it up, by the way, for the zakah. And if you miss previous years in zakah, you still have to pay them. Okay, so there is no kind of expiration for your zakah obligations.
I have a small question about this fasting, if you don't mind. So there are some actions like swearing or stealing or any of that stuff. So does that prevents siyam or makes you
No,
break
we
the
said all these prohibitions,
Yeah.
they waste the reward of the person, but they do not break legally his fast.
You legally do not break. So
Other than the things that we counted to invalidate the siyam,
Yeah.
there's nothing.
it's not
Yes. Okay, so inshallah, tonight we start the last part of the book, talking about the spirituality, talking about the tazkiyah part, or the purification of the heart. We finished the aqidah part, and then we finished the fiqh part, the second part of the book. And then today, inshallah, we're talking about the spirituality, which stands for the ihsan. If you remember at the beginning of the class, we said we talk about Islam, Iman, and ihsan. Talk about the aqidah, represented by the Iman, the fiqh, represented by the Islam, and today we're talking about ihsan, inshallah, which is the spirituality of people. The first thing he started with was protecting the heart from sin. حفظ القلب من المعاصي. He said, وحفظ القلب من المعاصي واجب على كل مسلم وكذا حفظ الأعضاء السبعة فرض عين على كل مسلم. Protecting the heart from sin is an obligation upon every Muslim. Likewise, protecting the 7 limbs is a personal obligation upon every Muslim. So, we talked before multiple times about why do we need that spirituality? What is the relationship between Islam, Iman, and Ihsan? And for those who attended the previous course, the Introduction to Islamic Sciences, there was a full lecture on spirituality and the ilm of tazkiyah, or the science of tazkiyah. Why is it very important, and how does it intersect with the rest of the ulum and the rest of the branches of knowledge? When we say spirituality, we're basically talking about the purification of the heart, of dismantling any kind of dunya or material things in our hearts and keep it only devoted to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is the meaning of spirituality. تجريد القلب عما سوى الله. You literally dismantle yourself and your heart from anything other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as a general cause in your life. When we say that we talked before about the ilm knowledge, there is the primary knowledge and the secondary knowledge, or the knowledge that is obligatory on every Muslim to know and knowledge that is secondary on every Muslim to know. And we said the obligatory knowledge on every Muslim is this trio of Islam, Iman, and Ihsan, and understanding the tazkiyah. And it's a very important, relevant topic for our current time. Living in this time and this part of the world that we're living in, that everything became materialistic, and the material has been very amplified. The external has been very amplified all the time. We do not talk enough about spirituality. We do not talk enough about ourselves. I mean, in terms of the self, the nafs. We do not talk about our hearts. We do not talk about our states of spiritual connections with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Shallowness is really the main thing that is prevalent nowadays. It's easier to get the sense of achievement and accomplishment these days without really putting a lot of efforts. And when we think and speak about spirituality in our tradition and in the seerah of the Prophet ﷺ, it's a journey that you take all of your life to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's why they call it, one of the terms, they use the word as-sayr or as-sa'iru ila Allah. They use this word and its derivations as a person who is wayfaring to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The wayfarer, the as-sa'iru or as-sa'irin, they call them like this. Because they consider human beings that they are travelers in a journey to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from the day they were born till the day they die. This is the concept that Muslims have in their minds. So in the part of spirituality, we need to understand ourselves in terms of the nafs again, ourselves. We use the word self or selves to express about the spiritual self. One of the interesting things is that in the old Roman language, they call the word nafs, the self in their language, they call it, which means in English, the mask. Something that you disguise behind, something that you hide behind. And the word personality, they use a word that is close to the word in English, shadow. So if it's a mask and a shadow, that gives you a meaning that they're fake, right? And your job in this life spiritual is to dismantle them, to understand how to get rid of your ego and of yourself. And a lot of people nowadays, and human beings in general, are really very, very egocentric. Everything just revolves around my ego and my reputation among people. That's why that's the beginning. If you understand the basics of your religion and you understand how to manifest them in these concepts, you understand that there is a difference between who really you are and what you think yourself to be, right? It doesn't matter what you think yourself to be. It's actually what really matters is like who are you? How can you spiritually define yourself? We talked about Imam Al-Ghazali before, and he authored a lot of books about these concepts, and he's one of the best people who basically talked about the human nafs. And he basically, in the most articulate way, he taught people how to dismantle your ego and how to dismantle your nafs. And when he authored his big book, Ihya Ulumuddin, Reviving Islamic Sciences, the 4 biggest sections of the book were basically about this idea that everything revolves around God. Everything revolves around Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If you're not happy with the qadr of Allah, so you're not happy with Allah Himself. So He created you, and He created the circumstances that you are in. The only thing He wants you to do is that He wants to see how you are receptive and how would you react to whatever circumstances He put you in. So He gave you blessings and He tested you with tribulations, and He wants to see how would you react to this. Life is about this. It's not your choice. You didn't create your circumstances. You didn't create your environment. A lot of things you didn't have a real choice for. He created all these things for you, and He put you on all these things to see how are you going to react to this. If there is a blessing, how grateful you will be. If there is an affliction, how patient you will be. It's all about how do you react to the qadr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We usually talk about spirituality at the end because it talks about how to purify your heart. And because it's the manifestation of fiqh. And they are very related. And we talked about this a lot of times basically. Last time we said you cannot, the Shaykh even in Salah, he would mention something about khushu', and Siyam would mention something about protecting the heart and the rest of the body, right? Because again, you cannot plant a seed in a rock. If you just learn fiqh and you don't learn spirituality, you're still halfway through to guidance. That's why the scholars in the Salaf, a lot of times they would say, "Man tafaqaha wa lam yatasawwaf faqad tafassaq." If you study fiqh but you do not study spirituality, you might commit fisq. Because knowing the laws is not enough for you to be a good person. Because a lot of people would learn the law to know how to avoid it, to know how to get away with it, right? But if you know the laws, and you know the invalidators of fasting, and you know the unrecommended actions of fasting, unrecommended actions of salah, and then you have the spiritual state of fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you would understand that I need to upgrade my level, that I don't want only to avoid the haram, I also want to avoid the makruh. You wouldn't have this determination to do these things if you do not have enough spirituality. So again, studying the law, the Islamic line, our terminology, which is the fiqh, studying it without spirituality is really tricky. And the opposite is actually much worse. If you only study spirituality without studying Islamic law, that's actually very wrong. Because if you only want to know about tawakkul, about Allah's mercy, about forgiveness, about whatever these concepts, and you didn't know the fiqh, you didn't know how to perform your prayer, you didn't know how to perform your fasting, the action might lead to kufr. They also said, "Man tasawwafa wa lam yatafaqqa faqad tazanda." He said, if you actually only learn and talk about spirituality and you don't know how to practice your religion, you may fall in kufr because you don't know how to practice your religion. So they both are really very important. That's why the first thing he mentioned, he talked about qalb, hifdul qalbi min al-ma'asi, protecting the heart from the sin. And then he would talk about, before we read the text, he would talk about the limbs of the body. So hifdul qalb wa hifdul jawarih, the protection of the heart, the protection of the parts of the body. So we start with the heart because the heart is the most essential thing. The Prophet ﷺ said, "Ala wa inna fi al-jasadi mudghah idha salahat, salaha al-jasadu kulluh." So there is in the human body there is a piece of flesh. If it is sound, the whole body will be sound. He's talking about that. He's talking about a spiritual concept, not physical one. وَإِذَا فَسَدَتْ, if it is not sound, the whole body will not be sound. They said this is the heart. أَلَا وَهِيَ الْقَلْبِ. We view the heart to be the king of your body. The heart is the king. Your body is the kingdom that this king is ruling. This is the way we imagine the meaning of heart in Islam. Your senses that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave you to realize and understand and perceive things through are the soldiers of that king. Because the heart controls your senses. The heart directs your senses to do certain things for him, for whatever he inclines towards. And then the rest of the body are the general public folks that this king is actually ruling. And then he has one big enemy in this kingdom, which is your nafs. Or specifically, your nafs al-ammaratu bisu', the nafs that, as the Quran mentioned, the persistent enjoiner of evil. Because we have multiple meanings of nafs. This is a heart in Islam. So if you fix the situation of the king of this kingdom, the whole kingdom will be okay. If it is ruined, the whole kingdom will be ruined. This is one of the meanings of the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. إِذَا صَلَحَ صَلَحَ الْجَسَدُ كُلُّهُ. Okay, what makes the heart sound? If he says it has to be sound, so what makes it sound? The scholars said three main things makes the heart sound. They said ilm, wa amal, wa hal. Knowledge, action, state of the heart. Which means spiritual state. This is the combination of things that would make your heart sound. Because the Prophet said, you have to make sure it's a sound. Knowledge means the knowledge of these three things we've been talking about since the beginning of the course. Knowledge of Islam, knowledge of Iman, knowledge of Ihsan. So this is all in number one, knowledge. Number two, action. You need to put these three things into action. So you practice these three things. You practice the Islam, you practice the Iman, and you practice the Ihsan. And then the last one is the hal, the state of your heart. Is that in all of these three things, and all the practices of these three concepts, Islam, Iman, and Ihsan, you know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is watching you all the time. Which is the Ihsan, part of the Ihsan. أن تعبد الله كأنك تراه. The muraqabah, you know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sees you. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is observant of whatever you are doing. So ilmun wa amalun wa hal. Knowledge, action, and a state of the heart. What is the link between these three things? What can put these three things together? A lot of things, but mainly Quran. Quran is your way to put these three things together. Quran provides you with knowledge, provides you with the way you practice that knowledge, and provides you with a very high state of your heart. So one of the main remedies of your heart for all these problems that we're trying to fix about the ma'asi, the sins he's going to mention, the Quran. Quran is one of them. There are other things, but Quran, of course, is the main thing. You can talk about righteous company, suhbah salihah, mujalasatu salihin, being with righteous people, being in a good environment, being in a good state of dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. A lot of different righteous actions would put these things together. But they said the link between these three main components of amal, ilmun wa amalun wa hal, knowledge, action, state of the heart, is the Quran, the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we understood from all this that we need to fix our hearts. And you should remember that the Prophet ﷺ said, يَدْخُلُ الْجَنَّةَ أَقْوَامٌ أَفْئِدَتُهُمْ مِثْلُ أَفْئِدَةِ الطَّيْرِ. So a group of people, men and women, they will enter the Jannah, their hearts are like the hearts of birds. The scholars kept pondering on this hadith, like what does he mean by their hearts are the likes of the bird's hearts? Some of them said because the bird's hearts are maybe the softest, the weakest physically, and maybe even morally. They said maybe he means the heart needs to be spiritually weak, not physically, which means that weak in terms of the heart always longing for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That the heart always feels that he's in need for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He said that when the Prophet ﷺ wanted to praise the people of Yemen, he said, أهل اليمن أرق قلوبا وأضعف أفئدة. Said the people of Yemen are softer in hearts in terms of their personalities, and they're weaker in terms of their selves. Again, the word weak here is not negative. It means that their hearts are really soft in terms of the truth, in terms of accepting the truth, in terms of their spiritual connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And they said the part of animals or birds that fears the most any source of fear are birds. They can get very scary easily. So that's why human beings need to have this sense of fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is what he means, by the weakness of the heart. So you fix your heart, and in the same process you protect the limbs of your body. And the limbs of your body are very important. It's very easy to protect them after you protect your heart. But you have to watch them all the time. Because those parts of the body will be witnesses over you on the day of judgment. يَوْمَ تَشْهَدُ عَلَيْهِمْ أَلْسِنَتُهُمْ وَأَيْدِيهِمْ وَأَرْجُلُهُم بِمَا كَانُوا يَعْمَلُونَ. Yeah, they're on that day, the day of judgment, their tongues, their feet, and their hands and their feet will be witnessing against them for whatever they used to do. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, الْيَوْمَ نَخْتِمُ عَلَىٰ أَفْوَاهِمْ. On the day of judgment, at a point of time, you will never be able to speak, because we will seal over their tongues, over their mouths. This is what the ayah says. And then وَتُكَلِّمُنَا أَيْدِيهِمْ وَتَشْهَدُ أَرْجُلُهُم بِمَا كَانُوا يَكْسِبُونَ. Their hands will speak to us, and their feet will testify about what they used to do in their life. So the part of the spirituality is about these two concepts: how to protect the heart and how to protect the limbs or the part of the body. So he said it's obligatory because, again, it's part of the ihsan, and part of the ihsan is to protect the heart. So exactly as you deal with Islam to be obligatory to know about you, it's obligatory on you to know about Iman, it's obligatory on you to know about these vices of the heart or these sins of the heart. So he said sense of the heart. فَمِن مَعَاصِ الْقَلْبِ الشَّكُّ فِي اللَّهِ تَعَالَى والأمن من مكر الله والقنوط من رحمة الله تعالى والتكبر على عباد الله تعالى والرياء والعجب بطاعة الله تعالى والحسد والحقد على عبيد الله. So of course each one of them can take a full lecture talking about it. He's just putting in short the different sins of the heart. All these sins are sins. The first one, for example, الشك في الله تعالى. Sins of the heart include doubt in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Most High. When you say doubt in Allah, it includes doubting His existence, and it includes doubting one of His attributes. الشك في الله تعالى أو في صفاته. So some people doubt the existence of Allah, that might lead them to denying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which is a kufr. So it starts as a sin in your heart. And then it might develop into a kufr, or like being just like a person who doesn't believe in God. Or you actually are in doubt about some of the attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which is very critical. That you're in doubt about any of His attributes. You're in doubt about Allah's mercy. You're in doubt about Allah's forgiveness. You doubt about Allah's generosity, for example. Whatever kind of attribute that you know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, like He is described with this quality or attribute, you cannot be in doubt about this. But we have to differentiate between two different kinds of doubt. Because the common question is sometimes a person would say, sometimes I'm confused about something about Allah. And I want to verbally ask about this. I do not understand fully the existence of Allah. I have confusions, misconceptions about the existence of Allah, and I want to talk to somebody about it. I have some confusions about Allah's mercy to people, and I want to ask people about it. So in the process of discussing this with someone, is that a kind of one of the sins of the heart because I'm doubting Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? So you need to understand there is a difference between two different kinds of doubt. There is a doubt that is only driven by self-inclinations and whims that a person just wants to argue and wants just to avoid any kind of commitment to religion or to obedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's a type of doubt. And there is another type of a doubt that a person who really wants to look for the truth. A person who really wants to understand more about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If he's, and you can never decide on this because the person knows what he's thinking of. If he's from that, he or she is from that second type that a person is really looking for the truth, he wants to know more about Allah. When he asks a person that I'm not really convinced that Allah exists, I want to know more about this. That doesn't mean he's in a bad side of the doubt, because maybe he is really looking for the truth and he wants to make his faith much more stronger. So you differentiate between these two different kinds of doubts to be one of the sins of the heart or not. He's talking about the negative kind of doubt, a person who just wants to doubt Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Also, al-amnu min makrillah, feeling secure from the plans of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What does that mean? He explained it in a nice way. He say feeling secure from Allah's plans is engaging in active disobedience with the presumption that they deserve Allah's mercy. And this is very scary. You keep sinning and you find yourself good. So you think Allah is good with me. This is the meaning of feeling secure from Allah's plans. I've been sinning for a long time. I was never like exposed to people if I'm trying to hide it. Or I was never like basically tested by anything from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Actually, I'm being given a lot of different blessings and ni'am, so I think Allah is okay with me. But He's giving you these blessings not because He's happy with you. We talked about this concept before a couple of times, that blessings are not necessarily a sign of pleasure. Right? Both are tests. An affliction is a test, a blessing is a test. We said in the Quran, Allah expresses about both in the same word, ibtila. فَأَمَّا الْإِنسَانُ إِذَا مَبْتَلَاهُ رَبُّهُ فَأَكْرَمَهُ وَنَعَمَهُ. When He afflicts or tests him, so He honors him and He gives him blessings. So He used the word test. Then He said, وَأَمَّا إِذَا مَبْتَلَاهُ فَقَدَرَ عَلَيْهِ رِزْقَهُ. And then when He tests him, so He restricts his sustenance or provision. So He used the same word in both situations, because if He's given you a blessing, that doesn't mean you're a good person necessarily. Or that doesn't necessarily mean that He's pleased with you. Actually, it's a test, and it's a more scary test that you might think that He's okay with you, so you would keep sinning and keep being heedless of His existence and of His watching you, and then you think Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is okay with me. And that time, the punishment will be really bad. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, أَفَأَمِنُوا مَكْرَ اللَّهِ. Are they then secure from Allah's scheme? فَلَا يَأْمَنُ مَكْرَ اللَّهِ إِلَّا الْقَوْمُ الْخَاسِرُونَ. That no one like feels him like he is secure from the scheme of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala except the folk that perish. The people who, the losers are the only people who think that they are secured from the makr or the plans of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Feeling despair from the mercy of Allah. Al-qunutu min rahmatillah. And it's very intelligent that He mentioned this right after the one about feeling secure from His plans. So He doesn't want you to feel secure from Allah's plans all the time, all of your life. Sayyidina Abu Bakr was the one who said that if one of my feet is the Jannah, I wouldn't still feel secure from Allah's plans. And that's Abu Bakr as-Siddiq. He said, one feet in the Jannah already. I didn't just step with the other feet. I still do not feel 100% secure of the plans of Allah or the scheme of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is the level that He wants to take you to. But at the same time, He tells you, yes, feeling secure is a sin from the plans of Allah, and despair of His mercy is a sin too. And be careful, because this is a very important spiritual concept. And when we've been taught about spirituality, or when we are teaching, specifically young people, when we teach them about their spiritual connections with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we have to teach them both. You have to tell them that you can never feel secure from Allah's plans, and you have to teach them that feeling despair of His mercy is a sin. Usually we don't talk about this concept to be one of the sins. It is a sin. To feel like yes, or to feel that despair of the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that's one of the sins. He counted here to be one of the sins. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in the Quran, وَمَنْ يَقْنَطُ مِنْ رَحْمَةِ رَبِّهِ إِلَّا الضَّالُّونَ. So the people that no one feels the despair of the mercy of Allah except the misguided people, the people who went astray. But these two concepts, again, they're very tricky. Because we go extreme in one of them, and we do not know how to have the balance between both. Imam Ibn al-Qayyim had a very beautiful statement. He said, people before committing the sin, they're all scholars about the mercy of Allah. He said, before they commit the sin, everybody is a scholar about the mercy of Allah. And after they commit the sin, they're all ignorant of the mercy of Allah. Did you get what he's saying? Because before you commit the sin, Shaitan tells you, like, come on, Allah is merciful, just do it. And you would become a scholar, knowing and like lecturing people on the mercy and the forgiveness of Allah is the most forgiving. That's just from it's a minor sin, it's not a major sin. Some people say that, right? It's not even a major sin, so it's okay to do it. You can just make istighfar, pay some sadaqah, and it's okay. Everybody commits mistakes, we all commit mistakes, and you can go on and on with lectures on the mercy and the forgiveness of Allah. But he said that after committing the sin, people become ignorant of His mercy because, the shaitan comes to you and says, you know what, you're so bad, you cannot make tawbah. How come you want to pray and you just did that? How come you want how you want to fast Ramadan and you've been doing that sin? Right? So people get confused between these two concepts. And the main source of that confusion is the shaitan. Shaitan is the one who deceives you in both ways. And part of that balance is to understand the concept of being regretful or of being sad about something wrong you did. And we need here to pause for a second and define something very important. So in the spiritual dictionary, when we use words like sadness, when we use words like anxiety, when you use words like depression, all these different terms, you really need to decide on the filter that you're using understanding these words. Because talking about them spiritually is completely different than talking about them psychologically or from the mental health point of view. And you have to differentiate between these two concepts. Because when we talk about spirituality, we're talking about a different thing. The concept of happiness and sadness, they are spiritual states in Islam. Those different than the modern psychological states that they've been like, at least they're trying to define them in a modern psychological state. I'm not saying that's wrong, but they're completely different. Because for example, in the Quran dictionary, we do not mean happiness in the psychological sense. Because there is no point of time in your life that you would determine that you're happy now. There's no such a thing in Islam. If you understand what does Islam mean about happiness, right? It's not just the joyful feeling in your heart that now I'm happy. You can be happy about a good meal that you just ate, but that's not happiness the Quran is talking about. The Quran says, shaqiyun wa sa'id, right? A person who is happy, a person who is like miserable, a person who's a loser. These words the Quran uses about both. You need to understand that the Quran is talking about a spiritual state, that your happiness is when you are in Jannah. This is the meaning of happiness in the Quran. Sa'ada in the Quran, happiness is Jannah. There is no point of, you don't come to a certain point of your life and now, alhamdulillah, I'm happy. There's no such a thing in Islam. Why? Because it tells you all the time, you do not feel secure from Allah's plans. Okay, that means I have to be in kind of anxiety all my life? No, but you need to understand that we're talking about spiritual definitions, that you have to have balance between both. That's why Imam al-Ghazali, for example, when he talked about anxiety from a spiritual point of view again, he said, not all anxiety is bad. There is a good form of anxiety. Because he said, the sense of comfort you get while you are making any sort of disobedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that's bad. You shouldn't be comfortable after the sin. Right? You shouldn't really be comfortable or having any kind of pleasure as feeling, and you just did a sin. You have to be very anxious. You have to be scared of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If you're not in that level, then it's actually much more problematic that you do not feel bad about yourself. If you know it's very late at night and just turned on the TV, or I wanted to watch a movie, for example, and I know that if I do that, most of the time I'm going to lose Fajr. And then I keep watching it until like it's almost Fajr, or now I'm tired, I want to sleep. And you sleep and you wake up, and as if nothing happened, you didn't even feel anything bad about this, that's a problem. You have to be in a bad mood. Now, spiritually, this is what I mean by the spiritual meanings of anxiety and these things. If you're not, you're in a much bigger problem. If you really don't care that much, now that's a really big problem. So he said, there is a good form of anxiety and there is a bad form of anxiety. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Surah Al Imran, he told the Prophet, he told his companions to, وَلَا تَهِنُوا وَلَا تَحْزَنُوا وَأَنْتُمُ الْأَعْلَوْنَ. Do not weaken and do not grieve, because you are superior to them. When did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reveal that to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam? When did he tell him, do not, himself and the Sahaba, do not weaken and do not grieve? In Surah Al Imran. What was that about? That was after the Battle of Uhud. It's basically one of the, if not actually the harshest battles and the harshest experience the Muslims experienced. So Allah is recognizing that they are in a state of sadness, and a state of, in psychologically they're weak, and spiritually they might be weak as well, right? Because they just lost a battle. A lot of people were killed. A lot of people were injured. The Prophet ﷺ himself was injured. So he said, وَلَا تَهِنُوا وَلَا تَحْزَنُوا. Just Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was commenting that, like, do not have anxiety and do not be depressed. Part of the beautiful supplications of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Allahumma inni a'udhu bika min al-hammi wal-hazan. Oh Allah, I seek refuge in you from, like, what does it mean by ham and hazan? From, like, things that cause me anxiety for the future and things that make me depressed for my past. This is one of the meanings of ham and hazan. Right? Because anxiety most likely is about things that will happen to the future, the fear of the unseen. Or I'm depressed about my past experiences, for example. That was part of the dua of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So sometimes, again, what Imam al-Ghazali rahimahullah said, he said, sometimes anxiety will be good for you. So what is the point? The point is how to keep the balance between both. Between, like, do not feel secure from the plans of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because that's a sign of a ruined heart. Allah, when he thought about Abu Jahl, in Surah Al-Alaq, he said, أَنْ رَآهُ اسْتَغْنَى. Did he think that he's just self-sufficient? He's not in need of anything? Right after that, he said, إِنَّ إِلَىٰ رَبِّكَ الرُّجْعَى. He is coming back to us. Where is he going? He's that arrogant about the Prophet. He's giving him all the hard time. You're going to be returning back to us. إِنَّ إِلَىٰ رَبِّكَ الرُّجْعَى. But at the same time, he's the one who said, وَمَنْ يَقْنَطُ مِنْ رَحْمَةِ رَبِّهِ إِلَّا الضَّالُّونَ. You shouldn't be self-dependent all the time, and you shouldn't be in a state of despair of His mercy all the time. You have to have balance between both. Is that easy? No. So two important definitions of spirituality is al-khawf wal-raja, fear and hope, right? And there are a lot of discussions in tradition that which is better. Which is spiritually better to me, to be my approach to the relationship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Should I be more at the state of fear or be more at the state of hope? What do you think?
Hope, balance.
So it could be fear over hope or hope over fear or 50-50.
Well, hope is part of the belief. It's better hope than fear.
Do you think that sometimes it's personal, that hope works more for some people and fear works more for some people?
Yes.
It doesn't have to be, and when I say personal, doesn't mean have to be like all of his life. Maybe at a certain point in my life, fear works best for me, and at a certain point in my life, hope works best for me, right? Because sometimes, for example, when you're in like a little bit young age, when we were young, we used to be very intimidated by death, right? We used to be very intimidated and very scared about visiting the graves, seeing somebody who's being buried in front of our eyes. The problem is the more we get immersed in and attached to the dunya, and we've witnessed a lot of different funerals, it really doesn't influence us that much anymore. That's why Allah said, حَتَّى زُرْتُمُ الْمَقَابِرِ أَلْهَاكُمُ التَّكَاثُرُ حَتَّى زُرْتُمُ الْمَقَابِرِ. You've been visiting the graveyard so often. Now, because every couple of weeks I go to the maqbara, I go to the graveyard and I bury someone. Now I go there and actually I'm checking my phone, I'm calling someone, I'm laughing. I see some people sometimes they laugh by the graveyard and we're burying someone. Or like, I'm not accusing them spiritually, but I mean like, it became very, very habitual. It became very normal. Some people are taking pictures for the grave and people are being buried, right? They do not get the impact. Maybe before, when you were a little bit young, when you go there, you're panicking, right? You're just trying to imagine this person now, we're putting turab and dust on him. And right now, when we're leaving, he's been asked. The Prophet said that. He can hear your footsteps leaving, and he's been asked right now, right? And you know that he's in a dire need for any dua, and you try to give him dua, and you've been selfish even in that situation because you give him dua because you want someone to do that to you when you die, right? Most of our actions are based on selfishness generally. Some of them are not really that bad, but you make dua because, yeah, make sure you do this because people will come to you. If you attend your janazah, get that tawab because, yeah, inshallah, people will do that to me. You get like a qirat of thawab, like a mountain of Uhud of reward if you offer a janazah, and then if you follow the janazah to the grave, another mountain of Uhud of hasanat. It's a huge mountain of reward. So you do that because you say, yeah, because if I have a bigger number of people offering salat al-janazah, I mean that maybe will grant me the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But again, it depends. So some people fear would work more for them, knowing about the punishments, the severe punishment of the hellfire, knowing about the grave. Some people maybe hope works more for them, knowing about the mercy, about the forgiveness. Generally, a lot of the scholars, they really, not a lot, but a good group of the scholars, they actually inclined more towards the concept of it's a 50-50. One of them was Imam Shafi'i, by the way, when we talked about spirituality. He said, هُمَا كَجَنَاحَيِ الطَّائِرِ. He said, they both are like the two wings of the bird. A bird needs two wings to fly. He said, you need two wings of hope and fear to get to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Some other scholars said, no, hope is better. Others said, fear is better. Some said, it depends on the situation, as I just said. And then, وَالتَّكَبُّرُ عَلَى عِبَادِ اللَّهِ. Arrogance over any servant of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The meaning of takabbur or arrogance in general, it means that you think you are better than others. That's the direct definition of arrogance. You think you are better than others. In anything or in any way or in any manner. Generally, you're better than others. It might be worse that you look down at others too. Because the levels, right? You might just think that I'm better than other people, or you might actually look down upon other people too. And you should have this in the back of your mind all the time. The scholar said, "Uthirat jahannamu bil mutakabbirin." The hellfire will be full of arrogant people. Almost 90% of the people in the fire, they're there because of the arrogance. And those are the people, al-muta'adhimu bima laysa fi, a person who actually acts in an arrogant way, although he even doesn't deserve to be given these attributes that he's bragging about. Sometimes you brag about things that you really don't have, or you really don't deserve to be given. This is the mutakabbir. And they also said, وَأُثِرَتِ الْجَنَّةُ بِالضُّعَفَاءِ. Said the Jannah will be full of weak, again, not weak physically, but it means that the people are humble. The people are humiliated in terms of their relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Arrogance is like a full recipe for disaster. It completely ruins your life and your hereafter. Simply read the Quran. Simply read the stories of the Ummah before us, of the peoples before us. Their main problem with the prophets is arrogance. Their main problem with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is arrogance. The main problem of their denial of the messages of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is arrogance. Even Fir'aun, the one who thought he's a god. Allah told Musa to tell Allah when he sent Musa to him, Sayyidina Musa, said, go to Fir'aun, innahu tagha, he transgressed. His main problem was transgression. And his transgression was out of his arrogance. That was his problem. That's why the first offer of remedy for his problem, he said, فَقُلْ هَلْ لَكَ إِلَىٰ أَن تَزَكَّىٰ. Do you want to be purified? He didn't want to address his intellectuality, talking about, okay, let me prove to you intellectually or rationally how God exists and how you're not God. No, his problem was spiritual. A person who says, I'm your Lord. He wants people literally to worship him. Sayyidina Musa addressed him at the beginning in the spiritual sense. Because it all comes down to this. I mean, if not 100%, 99%, it all comes down to this, that people have spiritual problems. Allah says in the Quran about the people of Fir'aun, وَجَحَدُوا بِهَا وَاسْتَيْقَنَتْهَا أَنفُسُهُمْ ظُلْمًا وَعُلُوًّا. He said they rejected the signs and the ayat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, while their inner selves were convinced of the signs of Allah. ظُلْمًا وَعُلُوًّا. Out of injustice and haughtiness. That was the only reason. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, he who has in his heart an ant's weight of arrogance will not enter Jannah. لا يدخل الجنة من كان في قلبه مثقال ذرة من كبر. So the Sahaba, because they were very committed to religion, look at the beautiful question they asked the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because they took every single thing he says very serious. They said, okay, they said, Ya Rasulullah, a man likes to wear beautiful clothes and shoes. The question might sound to you superficial, but it tells you actually deeply that they thought about, they filtered the statement of the Prophet ﷺ that, okay, now let's put yourself in their shoes. And he's telling you that you'll never enter Jannah with kibr, with arrogance. So they're checking all their actions in their hearts and minds. Okay, arrogance and that, yes, I can avoid that, I can avoid that, it's like a checklist, basically. And they come down to the conclusion that I can avoid all these things, but does that really apply to that I like having a good appearance? This is what they did. They're not just like asking random questions. Because they know the responsibility. Whatever he says, whatever comes out from his mouth, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, is shara, is something that he have to follow. So they are very specific about the questions. Not just they're just loving asking questions, but they're actually seeking how to practice and apply whatever he's saying, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So he said, a person or a man likes to wear beautiful clothes and shoes. So he said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Inna Allah jamilun yuhibbul jamal. So Allah is beautiful and He loves beauty. He said, I'm not talking about this. And then he defined arrogance for them. He said, arrogance means ridiculing and rejecting the truth and despising people. Al-kibru bataru al-haqqi wa ghamtu an-nas. He said, this is arrogance. This is what I'm talking about. You cannot enter Jannah with this. And it's a very important hadith, by the way, because what does it mean you cannot enter Jannah with arrogance? What if a Muslim has some like amount of arrogance in his heart? He will never enter Jannah? The hadith is so explicit, very clear. لا يدخل الجنة من كان في قلبه مثقال ذرة من كبر. Even like a mustard wheat of arrogance, like an ant's wheat, like a very tiny bit of arrogance in your heart, a person cannot enter Jannah. So, okay, maybe that happens to all of us. That means no one of us will enter Jannah. So one of the beautiful explanations of the hadith, the scholar said, it means arrogance will not enter Jannah with you. Did you get that? The arrogance itself will not enter the Jannah with you. Why? You have to be purified from this. And if you're not purified from this in this dunya, you'll be purified in the hereafter. So you'll be punished for this. So this is the meaning. Yes, you might end up entering the Jannah. You're a Muslim, inshallah, you enter Jannah because it's just like, he said it like a very tiny bit of arrogance. It's not going to enter the Jannah with you. You have to be purified first. It's a serious hadith. Imam Muslim reported this hadith under the chapter of Iman. He said the chapter of Iman, of faith. And he mentioned multiple hadith. He put it, fi bab al-Iman. He put this hadith under the chapter of faith. And that's a little homework that I really want you to do. Try to search for all of the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ in which he started the hadith with saying, لا يدخل الجنة. Whoever does so and so will not enter paradise. Whether it starts with the hadith or at the end of the hadith, doesn't matter. But any expression about لا يدخل الجنة, he will never enter paradise, or he will not enter paradise. Try to explore and search for these hadith. And try to find, is there really a kind of a link, a relationship between these hadith or not? Because a lot of them about, if not very inner spiritual problem, it's a social problem. You'll find out about it backbiting, you'll find out about lying, you'll find out about miserliness, you find out about arrogance. So they're all spiritual problems deeply in your heart, or social problems that you might cause the community or the people you live in. After the arrogance, he mentioned ar-riya, and showing off. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَمَا أُمِرُوا إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُوا اللَّهَ مُخْلِصِينَ لَهُ الدِّينَ حُنَفَاءَ. And they ordered not else than to serve Allah, keeping religion pure for Him, as men by nature upright. It's one of the biggest things that ruins your ibadah, ruins your relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it's different than arrogance. Arrogance, we defined it, but riya, or showing off, is that you want people to know what you're doing. أن يطلب الإنسان بقلبه رؤية الناس لأعماله. You want people to know about your good actions. You want people to know that you're a person who prays. You're a person who pays sadaqah, who pays charity. You're a person who do whatever kinds of goodness. This is the meaning of riya. And there are multiple kinds of riya. There are multiple kinds of showing off. Some of them, there's a kind of not really bad type of riya that would push you to do more good. That's still bad. It's less worse than the other one. Okay, so I want people to say that I commit to jama'ah in the mosque, so I'm going to go more often to the mosque. You have a problem with intention, and that might abolish a lot of your reward, but you're still doing something good, right? I want people to know that I donate sadaqah, so I'm going to donate more so people can know more about this. Again, that wastes the reward. I'm not saying that's a good thing, but this is a bit less worse than the other one that you want people to know things that you don't even do. That's actually worse. That's why they say riya'un zahirun wa riya'un khafi. There is that apparent showing off, and there's like the disapparent showing off. A person who really doesn't pray that much, doesn't pay sadaqah that much, doesn't whatever the good deed, but he wants people to know of him that he's a good person, that does never miss a prayer or whatever good deed that he's doing. Both are bad again, but they're levels in terms of their bad. And the biggest problem about showing off, it completely contradicts your ikhlas, your sincerity to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because there are 4 general contradictions of sincerity. 4 things that contradict your sincerity with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The first one is the sins in general. Because sins weaken your sincerity with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the second one is the shirk. It completely ruins your sincerity because you are not even a worshipper of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala anymore. And then al-riya, showing off, because it's a minor shirk. We call it a shirk al-asghar. There's the major shirk that, you already associate partners with Allah. There is a minor shirk. Why? Because you're not doing the thing for the sake of Allah. Or you're doing it partially for the sake of Allah and other part for people to know about you. So riya is the third one. And then hypocrisy or nifaq is the fourth one. The 4 of the things that contradict your sincerity to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then he said, وَالْعُجْبُ بِطَاعَةِ اللَّهِ. Conceit for an act of obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That you think you're good. You pray, alhamdulillah, you fast in Ramadan, you do the basic things and say, alhamdulillah, I'm a good Muslim. I think I'm good. I think I'm better than a lot of other Muslims. A lot of people say that, like, okay, look at the community, how bad is it? And now, alhamdulillah, I'm better than a lot of other people because alhamdulillah, I pray, I'm good in general. And you judge yourself based on the community that you live in. But what if the whole community is wrong? Just to begin with. That's not a sign by any means that you're a good person. You comparing yourself in terms of your obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to others has no point. Because number one, even all people are bad, as you say, and they're not. The Prophet ﷺ said, مَنْ قَالَ هَلَكَ النَّاسُ فَهُوَ أَهْلَكُهُمْ. If you say people have been ruined, you are the most ruined among them. The Prophet ﷺ said that. But assuming that people are bad, that's not the way you measure your actions and your obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But assuming actually that a lot of people are better than you, and that has to be the way you think of people all the time, that I'm the worst. You have to think like this, I'm not better than anyone. Again, I'm talking about in terms of your ta'ah and your obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We know of the Sahabi that the Prophet ﷺ used to tell him about all the news of the hypocrites and the munafiqeen. Umar ibn al-Khattab, the caliph, the second caliph of the Prophet ﷺ, used to go to the Sahabi, Sayyidina Hudayfa, and he would ask him, did Rasulullah ﷺ list my name among the hypocrites to you? And he's Umar ibn al-Khattab. He's the person that literally the Prophet told him, you are in Jannah. Like he gave him like stamped, certified, like testimony from the Prophet, you're going to be in Jannah. He went to Hudayfa after the death of the Prophet and he said, am I a hypocrite? Did the Prophet tell you that I'm one of the munafiqeen? Okay, even that Hudayfa himself, that he was the keeper of the secret of the Prophet ﷺ about this matter. He once said to his companions after the death of the Prophet ﷺ, he said, Wallahi, if a man comes to me and he says to me, Ya Hudayfa, Wallahi, he's making an oath to me, Wallahi, whatever work you're doing is not the work of a person who believes in the hereafter, I would tell him, your oath is actually right, you don't need to pay kafara for this. That if a person makes an oath, an actual oath, says, Wallahi, your work, you mean your work for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is not the work of a person who believes in the day of judgment, which means you're not doing anything for the sake of Allah. You're not fearing Allah enough. He said, I would tell him, لا تكفر عن يمينك. You don't need to pay kafara for your oath because you actually have spoken the truth. This is the sort of attitude that Muslim has to have. Imam Shafi'i used to say in his famous poetry, أحب الصالحين ولست منهم. I said, I love righteous people even though I'm not one of them. He said, لعلي أن أنال بهم شفاعة. He said, maybe they will give me intercession on the day of judgment, that they will, inshallah, mean of forgiveness from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He said, وأكره من تجارته المعاصي. I hate those people that they are trading in sins. Their trade and business is sins. And then he just didn't say that he hates them. Look at what he said. He said, وَإِن كُنَّا سَوَاءً فِي الْبِضَاعَةِ. He said, even if I'm equal to them, because their goods are also my goods. Like, which means I also trade in sins and ma'asi with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That was the spiritual attitude the Salaf had. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the ayah of the Quran, which is very scary. He said, وَالَّذِينَ يُؤْتُونَ مَا آتَوا وَقُلُوبُهum وَجِلَةٌ أَنَّهُمْ إِلَىٰ رَبِّهِمْ رَاجِعُونَ. Said, those who give what they give. They didn't specify what they gave. And then their hearts are fearful that you will be returning back to Allah. After this verse was revealed to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Aisha radiallahu anha, the wife of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, she came to him sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and she said, Ya Rasulullah, those are the people who drink, who steal, but they still fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He said, those who give what they give, but they're fearful of Allah, that they will be returned. She said, those are the people who steal, who like drink and commit these sins, but they still fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So he said, he said, no. He said, the ayah is talking about the people who pray, who fast, who pay sadaqah, and they are scared that Allah wouldn't accept from them. This is what the ayah is not talking about the sinful people. The ayah is talking about the people who still do all this righteous work, but they are fearful of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala might not accept from them. This is the meaning of وَالَّذِينَ يُؤْتُونَ مَا آتَوْا وَقُلُوبُهُمْ وَجِلَةٌ. And then he taught about envy or hasad. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, أَمْ يَحْسُدُونَ النَّاسَ عَلَى مَا آتَاهُمُ اللَّهُ مِنْ فَضْلِهِ. Or the envious of mankind because of that which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has bestowed upon them. The Prophet also said, إِيَّاكُمْ وَالْحَسَدِ فَإِنَّ الْحَسَدَ يَأْكُلُ الْحَسَنَاتِ كَمَا تَأْكُلُ النَّارُ الْحَطَبِ. Said, beware of envy, because envy consumes or destroys the virtues, just as the fire consumes the fire. So what does hasad mean? What does envy mean? Just to begin with.
Jealousy.
Jealousy is equal.
That means that I want something in your hand to be in my hand.
You want something in my hand to be in your hands. Yes.
You want something that they have, and you wish bad upon them.
You wish bad about them. Okay. Yes.
You don't want them to have this.
You don't want them to have this. Okay, so it's a little bit different than jealousy. Jealousy is a little bit different, but hasad or envy, that exactly as you said, تمني زوال نعمة الغير. You wish that this blessing that this person has, you wish it will be taken away from him. You didn't only wish to have the same, that's different level. No, you actually wish that he would lose this blessing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So generally hasad is so bad. Envy is something that is really bad. But the Prophet ﷺ said, لا حسد إلا فتنتين. He said envy is permitted in two cases. Right? He said a man that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives him wealth, so he disposes that wealth for his sake, like rightfully. Or a man that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives knowledge which he applies and teaches. So does this word mean envy is permitted in two cases? Does that mean that envy might be permitted sometimes? Is he talking about envy that we're talking about? No? Okay, so no. There is no, hasad will never be permitted even as an exception. He's not talking about hasad, he's talking about something else that you wish that you do like what this person is doing. That's not hasad. We call it in Arabic ghibta. Like I see a person, like this example the Prophet mentioned, the person, mashallah, who has wealth and he spends it on the sake of Allah. You say, Wallah, if Allah gives me like what he gave that brother, I would do the same thing. I would actually do more. That's not hasad. That's the ghibta, which is not bad. Because you're not wishing for his ni'mah or for his blessing to be taken away. Okay, so generally, so the hadith is not an exception for hasad. There is no exception for hasad to be something good. Okay, why hasad or envy is something bad? We now know it's bad. We know Islam makes it bad. Why is it bad? What is the main problem about hasad?
You're not satisfied with what Allah gave you.
Is what?
You're not satisfied with what Allah gave you.
You're not satisfied with what Allah gives you. What else? Yes.
It can cause problems between like Muslim people.
It causes problems between people. Yes. What else?
You don't like the person have something without reason.
Without reason.
Yeah.
Okay. The main major problem about hasad is that as if you are objecting something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala willed. It's an aqidah problem. That's why envy is so bad. It's an aqidah problem. Of course it's a social problem, it's a spiritual problem, but it begins with an aqidah problem. Because even if you're not explicitly saying this, but you say, why Allah did this to him and didn't do that to me? اعتراض على الله. It's a kind of, you are objecting the qadr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's the biggest problem of hasad. And then again, as you said, it has the spiritual problem, it has the social problem among people. And the other thing about hasad is that it's centered in human beings. It's centered in the human nature. We all have some sense of, we do want people to be better than us. Right? The main concept of hasad, there is a percentage of this concept, not in the very bad way, but there's a percentage in every single human being that I don't want people to be better than me in general. That's why the scholars classify the person who envies others into classifications. So he said there is a person who envies others, and then he is actively working on the removal of that blessing from other people's lives. Right? Because hasad is not only something that you do in your heart. You might actually actively work on the result of your hasad. So person has something, I envy him by my heart, and then I try physically to do something to make him lose that blessing. So it's a combination of both. It's a heart problem spiritually, and actually now I'm doing something to apply my bad feeling in my heart. And this is the worst kind of hasad or envious people. The second one is just a feeling. I wish that person loses that ni'mah, but I'm not doing anything about it. Now, if you try hardly to purify your heart from this feeling, maybe you're not gonna get sins. But if you let this feeling control you, now you get sins even by the feeling. So again, there's a feeling, and then I'm acting on my feeling to do something bad or harmful towards that person. That's the worst part. That's a major thing. And then the lower level is that I'm having a bad feeling towards that person, but I'm not doing anything physically about it. So I have to make sure that I get rid of this feeling as soon as possible, because it might come to your heart. You might see someone, we have this notion among people, Muslims in general, that you might envy someone and you're not noticing, right? Parents say that to you a lot. That, yeah, be careful, you might envy yourself and you're not really paying attention. Not that much, but the point is, it might creep into your heart without even noticing. That's the general idea as a spiritual, forget about the result of the hasad, but as a spiritual thing, that may just come to your heart. You make sure you get rid of it as soon as possible. Letting it control your heart, that's a sin that you will be responsible for. The third level, which is not really bad, that you're not wishing for the person to lose this ni'mah, but you are trying to be like him. Which might be close to jealousy maybe, but not in a bad way. Like you're jealous that this person is successful, is rich, is whatever. Okay, I'm gonna try to do something just to be like this person. Okay, he said, if it's over dunya stuff, it's up to you. There's no halal or haram. You're like if you're not doing something haram, it's okay. But if you're jealous for something religious, that okay, mashallah, this person is very committed to salah, is very committed to Quran, is very committed to whatever. I wish if I can be like him and have some sort of jealousy in a good way, that's okay. So you see the levels that they're going with through these feelings that come to your heart. Spite, that was the other sin or ma'asiyah that he mentioned, is constantly finding a Muslim to be annoying or actually a loathsome of any servant of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then he defined hasad. He said envy is disliking that another Muslim be blessed and being annoyed by it. It's one of the meanings of the hasad as well. Then he mentioned multiple other sins of the hearts. He said منها الإصرار على معصية الله. The other sins include persisting in a sin against Allah. Maybe we talked a bit about this. والبخل بما أوجب الله تعالى. Stinginess in what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala most high has made obligatory, which applies to the zakah, for example. Allah said, سيطوقون ما بخلوا به يوم القيامة ولا يحسبن الذين يبخلون بما آتاهم الله من فضله وخيرا لهم. Let those who greedily withhold what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given them of His bounty ever think that it's better for them. بل هو شر لهم. Rather, it's worse for them. Their necks will be encircled by what they withheld on the day of resurrection. سيطوقون ما بخلوا به يوم القيامة. Then He reminds all of us, said, وَلِلَّهِ مِيرَاثُ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ. To Allah belongs all the heritage of the heavens and the earth. Surah Al-Ma'un, Allah said, وَيَمْنَعُونَ الْمَعُونَ. Those people that, He starts the surah with people who deny the day of judgment, right? الَّذِي يُكَذِّبُ بِالدِّينِ. And He said, وَيَمْنَعُونَ الْمَعُونَ. Those who withheld even the simple assistance. It's one of the meanings of ma'un. And the surah is titled with Al-Ma'un. If you just withhold a very little, sort of simple assistance, that's one of the sins of your heart. وَسُوءُ الظَّنِّ بِاللَّهِ وَبِخَلْقِ اللَّهِ. Thinking badly of Allah and His creation. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا اجْتَنِبُوا كَثِيرًا مِنَ الظَّنِّ. O you have believed, avoid much negative assumption. إِنَّ بَعْضَ الظَّنِّ إِثْمٌ. Indeed, some assumption is ithm. The Prophet ﷺ said in a hadith that might be weak, but the meaning is true. He said, حُسْنُ الظَّنِّ عِبَادَةٌ. Said, having good thinking of Allah and people is a ibadah, is an active worship that you do for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the scholars explain this hadith reported by Imam Abu Dawood in multiple books in a very deep manner. They said it's part, another narration, he said, min husn al-ibadah. It's part of the perfection of your ibadah, that you're having good thinking and good dhann of people. The Prophet ﷺ also said, إِيَّاكُمْ وَالظَّنِّ فَإِنَّ الظَّنَّ أَكْذَبُ الْحَدِيثِ. He said, beware of suspicion, because suspicion is the worst of the false tales. The problem is, sometimes we get suspicious subconsciously, right? You see someone, or you watch something, and just in a second, this assumption comes to your heart. There is a negative assumption about this Muslim. And if your aqidah, alhamdulillah, is sound and you can avoid having it with Allah, it happens much more often to happen with people. So it's the same thing. If it's just like a small feeling that tries to get in your heart, try to avoid it as much as you can. And try to avoid it as fast as possible. Don't even give the shaitan opportunity to make this feeling control your heart. That why was this brother in that place? Why was this brother talking to this sister? Why this brother was doing this? Why did he say that? What was his intention behind this act? All these questions, once you find yourself asking yourself these questions, stop. Change topic. Change the environment. Leave the people you're talking to right away. Letting or leaving any sort of a door for these things to keep being brought up to you is your responsibility. That includes even your gatherings and our gatherings with people and our hangouts. That once there is backbiting happening, when there is anything that might even lead to something haram, you have to block all these means. If you can't, leave it. Because maybe you say, I cannot just force all those people to change. Okay, do not force them to change, but you can leave. Just simply leave. If you cannot change the conversation, just leave the place or that situation. Because again, if you let this feeling just come to your heart, you are basically responsible for this. He mentioned other examples. He said, belittling anything that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has magnified. That's a sin that we do not think of much. Including acts of worship and obedience, the Quran, knowledge, the Jannah, the garden, and the fire. Make sure you take these things seriously. Do not make jokes about these things. Do not talk about these things in any sort of belittling. By the way, that even includes the memes that you see on social media, right? Be really very careful with these things. Memes are not bad, I love memes. But when it comes to like a meme about salah, memes about Quran, meme about masjid, like you really need to be careful about these things. Sometimes, I know the intention will be really innocent, that we're just joking about something that often happens, that's okay. But if it's directly about something related to a ibadah or a Quran or an ayah or something like that, you need to be very careful, because part of our adab and politeness with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is that we take these things seriously. And part of the ma'asi that we believe in is التصغير لما عظم الله, to belittle something. I know that that's not the intention of people who do that, but we have to be very strict about these things. That those things we cannot even joke about. Even if our intentions are good, we shouldn't be joking about these things. Because we shouldn't be belittling, even ilm, he said even knowledge. Specifically, it's knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala or of his deen. And then he said, all of those are sins. All of these things that he mentioned, now he is done with the sins part. He said, all of those are sins, wicked and deadly. من المعاصي والخبائث المهلكات. They're deadly, they ruin you. And then he said, indeed, some of those will enter one into disbelief. He said, some of them are not only sins, they might take you or lead you to kufr, to disbelief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then وَالْعِيَاذُ بِاللَّهِ ta'ala. We seek protection from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala against this. So that was a summary of all the sins of the heart. Again, each one of them actually might take much longer time talking about them, but we just try to shed some light on the main concepts of these things. And then he would talk about the obedience, which is basically the opposite of all what we say. Whatever we said we have to avoid, he's gonna just list that. So we're just gonna read them and conclude inshallah. He said, وَمِن طَاعَةِ الْقَلْبِ الْإِيمَانُ بِاللَّهِ. You can just relate the opposite of each thing that we mentioned. الإيمان بالله واليقين والإخلاص والتواضع والنصيحة للمسلمين والسخاء وحسن الظن وتعظيم شعائر الله. He said the heart's acts of obedience include belief in Allah, which is the opposite of doubt in Allah. You can do these comparisons between each one. Conviction and yaqeen. Conviction is believing in your heart with certainty that Islam is the truth, with certitude and free of any doubts. This is the opposite of الشك في الله also. Sincerity, وَمَا أُمِرُوا إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُوا اللَّهَ مُخْلِصِينَ لَهُ الدِّينَ, or إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ. Actions are according to intentions. Humility, we talked about the opposite. Tawadu is the one not to see oneself as superior to anyone else in any way. The Prophet ﷺ said, feigning to have something you have not been given is like wearing two false garments. This is one of the very beautiful ahadith. Acting like if you are given something that you do not have, as if you are wearing two false garments. المتشبع بما لم يعطى كلابس ثوبي زور. It's one of the very beautiful ahadith that you should reflect on. Sincerity towards all Muslims, and sincerity here means an-nasiha. It's one of the meanings of nasiha in Islam. That you are being truthful in seeking what benefits Muslims. Generosity, which is the opposite of bukhl, of stinginess that he mentioned, open-handedness, is being generous with whatever that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given you, whatever that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala enables you to pay for his sake. And then thinking the best about Allah. Husnul dhanni billahi subhanahu wa ta'ala. The Prophet ﷺ said, having good thoughts concerning Allah is part of worshiping Allah. The hadith that we just mentioned about having husnul dhann. And magnifying the signs of Allah, which is the opposite of belittling the signs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Whether they are places where Islam is practiced, such as mosques, Kaaba, Safa, and Marwa, all these places, or something that are not places like the Quran and the ilm and this stuff. وَالشُّكْرُ عَلَى نِعَمِ اللَّهِ كَالْإِسْلَامِ وَالطَّاعَةِ وَسَائِرِ النِّعَمِ. It includes also thanks for the blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, like Islam, obedience, and all other blessings. وَالصَّبْرُ عَلَى الْبَلَاءِ مثل الأمراض والمحن وموت الأحبة وفقد المال وتسلط الناس والصبر على الطاعة والصبر عن المعاصي. It includes patience during difficulties such as sickness, tribulations, death of loved ones, lost property, and being overpowered by others, and patience during worship and from sins. I think we should stop here because we should discuss some points about the patience and the sabr, and they will just have the trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the detachment from the dunya. Then the only part left will be the sins of the jawarih, the sins of the limbs of the body, which is like not really a big part of the book. So next time inshallah will be the conclusion of the class inshallah, and there will be a kind of small celebration afterwards because we do have really one more week before Ramadan inshallah. So okay, so we have multiple announcements, just please pay attention. So the first thing is, are you okay to begin at 6 o'clock next time instead of 6:30? So we have, I just explained, so we have enough time to finish the book. We don't have so much left, but to finish the book, and then if we can have some more time for the kind of a celebration that we would have inshallah, and the team would offer you some things. So how many people are okay with this 6 o'clock?
I'm okay, but I don't know if I can make it on time. That's a problem.
So you're not okay?
No.
So what does that mean?
I finish work 5:30, but by the time I get out, it's 6:10, 6:15, so that's a problem.
Okay, so
Yeah.
majority are okay with 6, but the problem is we at the beginning we promised that it's gonna be 6:30. So I feel bad for those people, but not for Kareem, but for the rest. So how many people? Okay, sorry. Maybe I know a lot of people raise their hands. How many people are not okay with 6 o'clock? 3 people. Okay, so
I'll still be at work.
what is the earliest that you can make here?
6:30.
That's the earliest? Okay, so sorry. Maybe we'll delay like 5-10 minutes, but we need to start a little bit earlier. I'm so sorry about this, but you can listen to the recording. I'm sorry because it's almost 99%. But we need to have a little bit more extra time to be enough for the rest of the program. If we had more weeks before Ramadan, we would have done more sessions, but we're really right out of time. This is the first thing. The second thing, there will be certificates inshallah, which the certificates will be based on attendance and the quizzes. We had 3 quizzes. So based on the people who answered, submitted the quiz, I mean, all of them?
2 of us.
2 out of 3 and 7 out of 10 in terms of the attendance of the class. So we had 10 classes, 7 out of 10 and 2 out of the at least, of course, for the sessions of the class. Inshallah, those people will be getting the certificate. We said that at the beginning of the class, and those are the people who will get the certificates, inshallah. Anything else we should announce? Okay, is there any question?
Is there any quiz on this? Any quiz?
No. The last one was the last quiz. Right, okay, جزاكم الله خيرا. So inshallah we'll see you next week. Inshallah will be the last class. Barakallahu feekum.